In the year 1948, a photographer named David Seymour traveled through post-war Europe. His assignment for UNICEF was to document the circumstances of children affected by the conflict. His journey concluded in Poland, his country of birth. While there, Seymour learned the devastating news that the Nazis had killed his parents and most of his family. Seymour ventured outside Warsaw to Otwock, a place familiar from his childhood summers. Returning to the capital, he explored the ruins of the former Jewish ghetto. As events unfolded, he encountered a group of schoolchildren clearing rubble. Following them, Seymour arrived at a residence and school specifically for children described as backward and psychologically upset. Inside, an assignment was underway. Teachers had instructed the children to just "Dom, this is home." The task was for each child to render their idea of home using chalk on a blackboard. During this period, Seymour documented a young girl named Tereska, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, standing before the board. Instead of a typical house, Tereska traced a dense, frantic tangle of lines. Accounts from the time, including Seymour's own captions later published in Life magazine, noted the profound anguish reflected in her expression. The magazine's text stated, "Children's wounds are not all outward. Those made in the mind by years of sorrow will take years to heal." For many decades following the publication, Tereska's identity and the specifics of her story remained unknown. Some incorrect accounts even circulated suggesting she had been in a concentration camp, though investigation later proved that untrue. Researchers eventually delved into the archives of the Warsaw Institute, where Seymour had encountered Tereska. Cross-referencing school lists from 1948 with other information allowed them to narrow down possibilities. They identified 3 potential girls named Tereska. One was too old. Another was ruled out through comparison with family recollections. The third Tereska matched the age estimate and had attended the school for about a year. Researchers located her surviving brother and sister-in-law, who helped piece together her life story. Her full name was Teresa Dwentowska. She came from a Catholic family involved in the Polish resistance. Her father, Jan Clemens, was an activist in the underground state. During the Warsaw Uprising in 1944, the Gestapo severely beat her father. Meanwhile, Tereska's mother, Franziska, struggled desperately to provide for the family, sometimes venturing near the Jewish ghetto to trade goods. Amidst the German bombing of Warsaw, the family's home was destroyed. Reports indicate Tereska's grandmother was killed during this period, possibly by collaborationist soldiers aiding the Germans. Tereska herself was wounded by shrapnel. The injury resulted in brain damage. Subsequently, after the bombings forced them to flee Warsaw, 4-year-old Tereska and her 14-year-old sister Jadwiga faced a harrowing ordeal. They spent 3 weeks walking nearly 40 miles through the war-torn countryside, suffering from starvation. This traumatic experience left lasting marks. Tereska developed what was described as an insatiable hunger. Her physical and mental health declined steadily. Throughout the 1954 to 1955 school year, she required transfer to a mental asylum in Swiecz, a considerable distance from Warsaw. Despite her difficulties, drawing remained a constant interest from her early years, particularly subjects like flowers and animals. As a teenager, she reportedly struggled with addiction and exhibited violent behavior towards her younger brother. From the mid-1960s, Teresa Dwentowska spent the remainder of her life residing at the Turkey Mental Asylum near Warsaw. Sources from her later years suggest her world narrowed significantly, centered on basic needs like food, cigarettes, and her drawings. In 1978, Teresa Dwentowska died at the Turkey Mental Asylum. Her death occurred accidentally after choking on food. The record Seymour created of Tereska at the blackboard became an enduring symbol. It represented the unseen, internal wounds inflicted upon children by war. For Tereska, trapped within the experiences of her youth, the war never truly ended. Subsequently, the account of Tereska, captured in that moment at the blackboard, began its journey into public consciousness. The publication in Life magazine brought attention to the unseen psychological toll of war on Europe's youngest survivors. The caption accompanying the record spoke volumes. Children's wounds are not all outward. It highlighted a truth often overshadowed by physical destruction, the deep, internal scars left by years of violence, fear, and loss. For decades, however, the specific identity of the girl remained elusive. Her story was shrouded in the general anonymity of post-war suffering, leading to speculation and sometimes inaccurate assumptions about her background. Research undertaken many years later finally pierced through the mystery. Diligent work in Warsaw's archives and the pursuit of leads eventually connected the historical record back to Teresa Dwentowska. Understanding her personal history provided profound context for the frantic lines she drew. The bombing of her home, the violence witnessed during the Warsaw Uprising, the shrapnel wound impacting her brain, these experiences shaped her perception of home. Her desperate flight from Warsaw with her sister, facing starvation and uncertainty at such a young age, further compounded the trauma. These events established patterns of distress that would follow her throughout her life. As a result, the concept of a safe, stable home, the very subject of the school assignment, was replaced by an overwhelming sense of chaos and fear. Her chalk marks were a direct expression of that internal reality. The long-term consequences were severe. Her subsequent institutionalization, struggles with addiction, and reported behavioral issues trace back to the profound psychological injuries sustained during the war years. During this period, even as she spent decades in mental health facilities, her early love for drawing persisted, offering perhaps a small outlet amidst her struggles. Teresa Dwentowska's life story, recovered after so long, stands as a powerful testament to the lasting impact of conflict. It underscores how the experience of war, especially for a child, can fundamentally alter development and cast a long shadow over an entire existence. Her experience, documented by Seymour, continues to resonate. It serves as a reminder of the countless individual tragedies behind historical events and the critical importance of addressing the hidden wounds of war. The circulation of Seymour's record, initially through prominent publications like Life magazine, ensured Tereska's chalk lines reached a wide audience. It became an instantly recognizable representation of childhood trauma in the aftermath of World War II. Subsequently, the lack of specific information about the girl herself allowed the historical moment to become somewhat generalized. While powerful, its connection to a unique individual life story was temporarily lost. During this period of anonymity, various interpretations surfaced. The incorrect assertion that she had been in a concentration camp, for example, demonstrated how easily narratives could shift without concrete biographical details. It wasn't until dedicated research efforts much later, utilizing archival records and tracking down family members, that Teresa Dwentowska's specific history emerged. This process restored individuality to the widely known symbol. Knowing about the destruction of her family home during the Luftwaffe bombings provides crucial insight. The violence surrounding the Warsaw Uprising, including the likely death of her grandmother and the injury to Tereska herself, redefined her understanding of domestic space. The subsequent desperate journey on foot, marked by hunger and fear, further eroded any sense of security or normalcy associated with the concept of home. These accumulated traumas manifested in the tangled lines on the blackboard. Therefore, the chalk drawing wasn't merely an abstract expression of distress. It was a direct reflection of lived experiences, of chaos replacing structure, fear replacing safety. As events unfolded throughout her life, the persistence of these early traumas became evident. Her documented struggles in adolescence and adulthood underscore the profound, lifelong impact of experiencing intense violence and loss at a formative age. The eventual discovery of her tragic death in 1978 closed the final chapter of her life, but cemented the poignancy of the 1948 record. It highlighted a life permanently altered by events decades earlier. Ultimately, the story of Teresa Dwentowska, recovered from historical anonymity, offers a specific human dimension to the broader understanding of war's psychological cost. Her frantic chalk lines remain a lasting testament to the internal landscapes fractured by conflict. David Seymour himself carried the weight of recent, profound loss during his assignment. Having learned in Poland of his own family's destruction by the Nazis, his lens likely captured the suffering of these children with particular sensitivity. His arrival at the Warsaw Institute for Disturbed Children occurred within a landscape still deeply scarred. The city was rebuilding, but the psychological devastation lingered, especially for the young. Institutions like the one Tereska attended were grappling with unprecedented challenges. They provided essential care, but faced overwhelming needs from children, bearing deep emotional and psychological wounds from the preceding years of terror. The teacher's assignment, "This is Home," was intended perhaps as a therapeutic exercise. Yet for a child like Tereska, whose experience of home was synonymous with destruction and loss, the task evoked only the chaos she rendered in chalk. Years passed, and while the historical record endured, the connection to Teresa Adwentoska faded. The account became emblematic, yet detached from the individual it portrayed. Subsequently, the meticulous research that uncovered her identity decades later was crucial. It reconnected the symbol to its human source, revealing the specific sequence of events that led to that moment at the blackboard. Learning about her family's resistance involvement, her father's suffering, her mother's struggles, and the direct physical and emotional trauma Tereska endured provided the missing narrative. It explained the tangled lines not as abstract art, but as a testimony. During this period of rediscovery, the details of her later life in institutions further highlighted the long-term consequences of her wartime experiences. Her story became a case study in how childhood trauma could shape an entire life trajectory. The confirmation of her identity and history prevents the account from remaining solely a generalized symbol of suffering. It anchors the historical moment in the specific, tragic reality of one child's life, profoundly altered by war.